The world has finally woken up to what needs to happen, and RMI is the perfect organization to solve that.
The green moment has come, and RMI is a hugely credible, important voice in helping to set and calibrate agendas, and then with a focus on implementation.
Solving problems around energy efficiency and climate change and all the other things that you can solve. And I think that total view is the thing that is most energizing and exciting about the work of RMI.
One of the great things about working at Rocky Mountain Institute is that as an entrepreneurial nonprofit, we work with the short-term problems of our clients, but we also can take really the long view.
It's hard to visualize what the future is going to look like, but we at Rocky Mountain Institute are trying to design a new type of life for all of us.
The world we're striving for is secure, that is, it is free from fear of privation or attack, so that there is enough for all, forever.
And ultimately, we think we're going to get there through the types of stuff we're doing today, which is, again, tackling the efficiency of our current car, truck, and plane fleets.
On average, it'll be much the same in that you'll go into buildings and they'll be lighted and heated, that you'll go into businesses and shops that'll have the same light. But the light will be produced differently. We will generate a fair amount of our electricity from the sun and from the wind.
And we're really trying to create buildings that are regenerative, that produce more energy than they use or create clean water. And we want to do it in a way that is convincing to the rest of the world, so we inspire key decision makers to make a difference in their buildings.
I think when we look back on the first 50 years, we'll really be able to say that we made a big difference and that we set out in the world ideas, practical achievements, and people that will enable our peers and successors to build on what we've achieved together. When the energy crisis hit in '73, the emphasis was entirely on supply, and I just sort of called a time out and said, wait a minute, let's start with what we want the energy for. What's the best way to do that job? That turned out to be a much more fruitful approach.
I was in undergraduate class at Stanford University with a professor named Gil Masters, and he showed me this article that had just come out in Foreign Affairs by this guy named Lovins, Amory Lovins, and he asked the very basic question.
What are the many different tasks that we want the energy for?
What do we use all that energy for?
And what is the amount and type and source of energy which will do each task in the cheapest way?
And can't we do it more efficiently?
People tend to be intimidated by energy, to say we have to leave this to the experts. It has to do with all these big complicated machines that we can't understand. It isn't like that at all. The energy problem is the cracks around my window.
At the time, that was absolute heresy, and he had to really stand up to the entire energy establishment.
You give no source material on these statistics that you presented. Are they God, U.S. government, my handbook of fraudulent statistical manual, or just what is the source material?
Maybe I should run through that one again slowly.
I was cross-pollinating across the energy grapevine from '71 to '81. During that time, got married. Hunter and I moved back from London in '81 and started looking for a little land where we could build a nest and gather just a handful of colleagues so we'd be more effective. We found some land in Old Snowmass that would be suitable as the headquarters of this little nonprofit we would start.
It's not just an institute, it's their home too, shared with colleagues who also share the Lovins' vision of changing old notions on energy.
I was struck by the fact that this guy had already thought through a whole array of issues that I had maybe thought about in pieces. We're in the midst of these serious environmental problems, but no, here are the solutions.
And gradually, as we accreted more people, we started doing some quite interesting work. Rocky Mountain Institute's mission statement has only been refined by changing a few words in 25 years. The goals haven't changed. The staff has gotten a lot better. I've learned a lot, and I think we're now on the brink of a whole new level of effectiveness.
My name is Michael Potts, and I'm the CEO and President of the Rocky Mountain Institute. Today's world is a huge web of interlocking energy consumption systems that were all designed with the basic thought of cheap and endless energy. Now we know that energy is no longer cheap and isn't endless and carries other consequences with its use. This is the biggest question facing our generation, perhaps even our species. And Rocky Mountain Institute is all about helping people find the solutions that will help us lead a good life, but also take good care of the planet. RMI has 3 teams that work in interrelated areas. The Built Environment team that focuses on buildings and communities. The Energy and Resources team that mostly works on electricity creation and industrial processes, and mobility and vehicle efficiency, which is all about transportation.
70% of the oil that we use in the United States is used to fuel our mobility. So if you are worried about the oil issue, if that's your biggest concern, it's all about transportation. So the way RMI works is we look at problems a little differently. We look at it through the whole systems lens. And we look at it also with a very strong perspective on end-use efficiency. So in transportation, we're all about looking at the major sectors, particularly automotive, which is light vehicles, light trucks, heavy trucks, the 18-wheelers you see on the highway. And we're even starting to dive into aviation and freight. And we're looking at how to make those sectors more efficient by focusing on how they can most effectively use energy to get that end-use service that you want. So if it's a car, as Amory Lovins often tells us, less than 1% of the gasoline we put in that tank actually moves you, the driver. So we're working on ways to do that more efficiently by making cars lighter, by promoting better aerodynamics, and by looking at making the drive systems more efficient with electrification. We really see a vision of ultimately providing all of our transportation and mobility needs within our solar income. So we're not having to mine things out of the ground to power where we want to go. We can go where we want with renewable energy, completely clean.
The biggest issue we're trying to take on is how to reduce the carbon dioxide produced by electricity in the United States and around the world after we've worked on it here. And we tackle that in a few different levels. One is how do you have efficient and cost-effective production of electricity from renewable resources. But just as importantly, we work on the other end of the spectrum, which is how can we reduce our demand for electricity in our homes and businesses without negatively having an impact on people's lives. So there's a lot that can be done right now to reduce the use of electricity in the U.S. by 20–30%, simply by applying well-known measures that are used in the top 5 or 10 states in the country. I think one of the really interesting pieces of work we've done is part of the team has looked at how much wind can you use today given the current electrical system, and the general feeling has been historically that wind varies from 0 to 100% of available power, and we've been able to show by looking at over larger regions, let's say something the size of Texas, that actually the wind blows in some places and not in others, but it all is blowing somewhere, and so there's actually a base load of available wind to the utility system.
The work we're doing is really important for several reasons. A couple of the most important would be responding to climate change, in that buildings produce the most CO2 of any of the major sources of CO2, and if we can get that neutralized, it's critical to the planet. Unlike several other items in the world that consume resources, buildings are one of the most challenging. It's a very difficult process to change. Buildings are here for decades and centuries. Our built environment team is really trying to transform the building industry to look ahead and be super efficient, but also apply appropriate technology so that by design we create abundance and prosper and have buildings that become carbon neutral and eventually get a whole building industry that's carbon neutral. But also we're doing it in a way that we create better buildings and more exciting places to live, work, and play.
Rocky Mountain Institute was founded in Snowmass, Colorado. and we still have a substantial location there. Our chairman and chief scientist, Amory Lovins, is there, our executive director, and our communications team are centered there, as well as our mobility and vehicle efficiency team. We have another site in Boulder that has about twice as many people, that is more conducive for travel. Our built environment team and our energy and resources team are headquartered there. But really, the work that we're doing here is collaborating, researching, designing changes that are driving huge innovations out there in the world. At the Rocky Mountain Institute, we tend to attract people who are smart, innovative, committed. These are great collaborators, headstrong, stubborn, fun people that drive real change and also challenge each other endlessly.
I have a great group of people to work with. They're all very interested, passionate about the work, personally, I think committed to trying to figure out a solution. And I think we have the right mix of people that we can tackle this in conjunction with some of our colleagues in the other practices, that we can actually tackle a very large multidimensional problem.
It's a really exciting time at RMI because we've ended up with a lot of great projects in the past, but we're doing more and having a bigger impact, and now we're developing ways to better share that secret.
And more excitingly, we're increasingly working with other teams across RMI. Some of our most exciting projects are working with the built environment team and the energy resources team. The smart garage is literally bringing together the green building, the next generation clean utility, and the clean electric vehicles of the future to create an energy system that can have immense amount of renewable energy powering it and meeting our needs with minimal environmental impact. The most exciting work that we are doing at Rocky Mountain Institute are bringing together the buildings, the energy, and the transportation on shared solutions and shared vision to a clean energy future.